Today we're gonna listen to the Nightcraver, which is a pretty curious title for an album which had been bathed in sunlight so far, but it's all about the dynamics, right? I'm gonna shut up immediately and we're gonna move on to the music section, I guess. Right from the get-go, what we do have really heavily here is this drone note, which is pretty apparent to me. I mean, the sparkling from the keys, yeah, of course, that also adds to the star-filled aesthetic, but I think what stands out here to me is this drone note, actually. He's very centered in this. What I understand so far is that this is one of the more rock-like songs, and just atmosphere-wise I'm getting vibes of My Last Farewell, where this kind of aesthetic appeared for the first time. It's pretty cool actually, because it's filled with a lot of effects in the background from the synth, which I really appreciate. It was mentioned before, but I totally forgot. If you focus on the lyrics, you might actually notice that they are in Japanese. Maybe I missed something here, but I think that's the first time. And I don't know if it's just because of the switch in language, but it also sounds more Japanese. I hear a lot of musical choices which remind me a lot of anime aesthetic in the broadest sense. We have this tension and release again here. And that's just really cool. Whoa. Like, I would actually be really interested if there was actually a connection between the switch in language and the sound of the music. I heard Shu talking in a pretty old interview about his musical approach and that he chooses the aesthetic and the language according to the project. And I can kind of imagine that they have like different modes of thinking when it comes to language, so that when they make a song which has English lyrics, then they're going for a different sound than they would if they made a Japanese song. I can totally hear this as an anime ending song of some sort, even an opening. Maybe it even was an opening or ending song for something. I wouldn't be surprised. It would also be interesting to me, especially for like Japanese listeners. This shift in sound, is this more interesting to you or is it more boring? Because with me, it vibes a lot actually. Yeah, just to recap a bit, we had this heavily star-filled scenery in the pre-chorus in the transition, which also did a thing which is pretty common in anime openings. This build-up is, I think, pretty characteristic for this type of music. And this chorus feels really rock-like. It doesn't feel like metal at all. It's a nice change in pace in that regard. And also the transition back again also feels very anime. This opening up feels really good. Whoa. The guitar here. Ooh. Also the wah in this. Keyboard solo. I really wonder if the sparkly sound is actually played by Yuki live. Like, maybe we can see that in live if they play it somewhere, that he might play the sparkly sound on one keyboard and the other sound on the other, which is actually pretty badass. We have to talk about this at a later point when we watch this. I totally love Yuki. He feels like a wizard to me in some sense. Okay, just a bit of appreciation for the solo here. I think it's also partially production-wise. I just love the guitar sound. It just feels so crisp here in this album. Yeah, and just the overall mood with the synths and Yuki's keyboard solo. The thick soundscape gives you a lot of room to dream, you know, which is also a fitting topic. It's a night theme song. We hear a lot of stars and all of that stuff, but everything we have in the second guitar, especially in the verse, we have this really warm soundscape that just wants to take you in. Just a few peaks in the solo. That was pretty cool because it added this sacred element to it, but because of those low, dark choirs, it actually felt like the darkest section of the entire song. And then those... Oh yeah, that's the darkest peak here. Some people pointed out this really heavy wah sound. I wasn't very versed with that before Galneryus, but I must say it's not only pretty entertaining to me in some sense, especially in this combination. It sounds kind of goofy, but also in the solos, I kind of dig what he's going for here. Very nice melodic solo, by the way. And that's just the highlight, of course. And just a drone in the background. That was pretty cool, man. The drums. Yeah, but I don't even know how to put that in words. It's just really interesting to me. The second guitar, it plays in a really low register. It feels almost aggressive or threatening, or it should. But in some weird way, it feeds a lot into this cozy, warm sound I was trying to outline before. Right? Oh, that's cool. That's a kind of call and answer thing. It's not very prominent in the mix, but I think that's a pretty cool detail. And also generally what they added in the guitar here with the slides and stuff, it's just pretty cool. Woo! I think that's pretty much a jump scare, actually. It's really loud in the mix, man. Maybe the first one in the entire discography, but it's pretty loud. Yeah, what can I say? For obvious reasons, there is a notable change in style. That might also be where the creative differences between Yamabe and Shu started, which later resulted in them parting ways. But I don't know any more details about that. But maybe it was for the greater good, because due to that, we've got this album. One for all for one, right? Yeah, to just, before we move on, to just sum it up shortly again, I like the cozy anime feel it has to it. It has a really thick, dreamy aesthetic, not only because it's supposed to suggest a night theme, with a lot of sparkling and stuff, but just in general. And yeah, I think that's actually the most important element for me here. Before we take a look at the lyrics and the album cover, I just wanted to read a comment. There were also more people who mentioned this. Yeah, exactly. By the way, during the release of this album, bassist Tsui left and a new, more famous bassist known as Yuto or Leda joined the band. I actually know the guy only from hearsay. I listened to some stuff from him, but I don't know him very well, and we just watched the music video, and if I'm not entirely mistaken, it's already Yuto. And just referring to my own video, that's Yuto apparently, right? That's me, that's Yuto. The old bassist, I think his name was Tsui. He was really underrepresented in the videos, so I didn't really notice. But in New Legend, we actually got a lot of exposure for this new member, and he also got a bass solo. It was just interesting to me because I only know him as a guitarist, but he also seems to be a pretty badass bassist. At least badass enough to play in Galneryus, which is a flex in and of itself. But yeah, just an interesting point missed in the last video. Finally, let's take a look at the album cover. We have said a few words about this already, and I think there's not much to say. This reminds me a bit of this Michelangelo image where God reaches down to Adam. What you also have here is, this is a thinner hand and forearm, and this just from the framing, but it's also intentional, I suppose. This seems to be more thick and strong, and we also have a bracelet here which might indicate a higher standing of some sorts. The background is pretty blurry and abstract, and I think not important, except for maybe it's just stone wall, and we have these rays of light which are like probably the most important element here. Especially, I think the lighting doesn't really make sense here if the rays of light are just coming from above. The strongest lighting comes actually from below, it seems to me. The hands are glowing to a suspicious extent in ways they actually shouldn't. Just the color vibes a lot with me, and I think it resonates a lot with the sound of the album, especially with the guitars and stuff, and the shift to music that sounds more rock-like than actually metal in many instances. When I look at this image, I kind of keep it pretty abstract, but you can also just imagine it's a New Legend. Maybe you have someone who is trying to recruit new troops for some kind of battle. We also maybe see a few new themes in the lyrics. This seems to be the simplest album cover we have so far. The ones before were from Yoshitaka Amano, and what I found interesting there is that they seemed like paintings, right? They seemed like depictions of certain scenes or something, I don't know. But this seems simple and abstract enough that it just captures a feeling which is actually pretty notable for me, also in regards to the music. And here's an interesting side which shows the lyrics romanized and actually in English. So, like a blade cutting through the mist, on the night that falls, there's a trap I can't escape. Drowning in excessive pleasure, I've slipped out my life. There's a sin I can't run from. Still revisiting this theme I think we had in Bleeding Chaos, and also in this one song in Advance to the Fall, the last one, Under Threat I think it was, where we had this theme that someone is running away, and at one point it was the axe falling down, at one point it was a battle kind of following. And here's a trap I can't escape. Drowning in excessive pleasure. That's also interesting because it might be actually a negative pleasure. And that might be the trap, right? Which keeps me from progressing, essentially. I've slipped out my life. There's a sin I can't run from. Yeah, it sounds actually a lot like that. Something I shouldn't do, but still do or have done, and dragging that around, which keeps me from going on. Soul disturbing, a maze with no tomorrow, just desire is there. Soul disturbing, in a dream with no tomorrow, I'm forgotten and falling. And that's the chorus. Everything now just shattered, nothing left craving the night. Everything now is just stolen. If something remains here, only you are enough. Yeah, we capture this turmoil and disturbance. It's a maze with no tomorrow. So the Nightcraver seems like the night before something, maybe. Craving for the night before to never end, so I don't have to do what I must tomorrow. That's what's actually on a musical level interesting to me, is it doesn't sound really confusing, you know. Well, there is this convoluted Starfield sound, but it sounds pretty beautiful and soothing actually, and I think that's this drowning in excessive pleasure, this trap I can't escape, you know. They don't want to portray that confusion in a negative way. It feels like something positive, and that's the exact problem. Everything now just shattered, everything now just stolen. The night in which I tried to flee for as long as I could now slips through my fingers. There's nothing left craving. If something remains here, only you are enough. I don't know what that is. Is that again a love theme, or I'm not sure about that. Like a blade found on the night revealed, there's a trap I can't escape. Drowning in excessive pleasure, I've slipped out my life. There's a sin I can't run from. Soul disturbing, in a dream with no tomorrow. I'm forgotten and falling. Everything now just shattered, nothing left craving the night. Everything now just stolen. If something remains here, only you are enough. Seems to be just a lot of repetition here. There's not many switches. It feels like a very tightly constructed song theme-wise. Yeah, this only you are enough is interesting. Is it referring to the other which went away into the future and now I'm following, or do I have to leave someone behind again, or is that, well, we don't know. Maybe we will find out in the course of the next song. So those were the lyrics, which means that was it for this episode. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and hope you're gonna have a great time with this remaining album, and see you next week.